Day 31 of the Irish Coast Cycle, and I'm waking at Wine Strand, right down the bottom of the Dingle Peninsula, going to be cycling up by Slea Head and then heading all the way back up the peninsula, across through Tralee and on to Banna Beach to camp that evening. But first of all, let's enjoy these final shots of Wine Strand, an absolutely beautiful spot. We're far away from those busy main roads of yesterday, and indeed winding around the coast of Dingle from here is going to be mostly very quiet roads. I suspect at the height of summer they're busy because the Slea Head Drive is a sort of fairly famous tourist route, but I'm doing it early in the morning and I'm doing it in mid to late May, so it's very quiet. And there's plenty of time for me to stop and take in these views out to the islands. Now, where I'm heading to is around to Dunquin, which is famous, among other things, for its pier, and we'll have a look at that in a moment. The pier at Dunquin, apart from being the route out to the Blasket Islands, made famous by Peg Sayers, is also famous because every year some tourists try and drive down it. It's absolutely incredible. You look at it and you go, why would you try and do that? They get stuck, and then a local farmer has to get a tractor out and pull them back up again. So if you're cycling, you're probably not going to cycle down there anyway, but you can always push the bike back up. If you're driving, please don't do that. From Dunquin, it's on to the famous Slea Head Drive. This is so narrow that coaches and camper vans are recommended to only do it in one direction. It's grand on a bicycle. You can hear traffic coming from quite a distance away, and there are quite a few narrow enough passing places you can get in on. From there, though, I was on to Dingle, where I stopped for lunch and I charged my batteries in the cafe above the department store in town, and then on to the back roads out of Dingle. So there's a main road that runs out of Dingle. That's very busy. You do not want to be cycling this. And then there's this road, which is parallel to it, a little bit to the north, obviously much more hilly, but as you can see, very much more beautiful to cycle, and you can mostly stay off that main road all the way up the Dingle Peninsula. I'm in fact also going to be heading for another spot that very few tourists go to, and that's Annascaul Lake. We'll see that in a few minutes, but first of all, let's just enjoy that road, because you don't get many roads that are like this. This is an active farming area. There's a lot of agriculture basically goes on in the Dingle Peninsula, even though when you look at the land, you often wonder, wow, that must be quite hard to work. But in fact, what I was running into from time to time when I was following this route were people herding sheep with sheepdogs, some quite big flocks. So if you are cycling it, remember that really the farmers get priority. Don't be impatient, just pull in and wait for them to finish whatever they're doing, particularly if they're herding sheep or cattle, because if you cycle straight at them, there's always a danger you're going to startle them and not only disrupt their work, but with cattle at least, they can do a serious amount of damage if they hit you or somebody else. So take your time. Enjoy the scenery. It's absolutely fantastic. You'll also run into some walkers here. And very little traffic. I would say probably in an hour and a half of cycling, I was passed by no more than 5 or 6 cars in the total time. This is the Eurovelo 1 route, by the way, although I am now swinging away from the route to head north while it heads south along the coast. And the reason I'm doing that is because I'm heading to a lake that I'd spotted in the mountains on Google Maps that looked fantastic, and I wanted to check it out. Now, that's Annascaul Lake, or Annascaul Loch, and amazingly, because you'll see why I call it amazingly when I get there, there seem to be very few people actually visit it. As you get close to it, you'll come to a gate blocking the road. Don't worry about that. That's basically just to stop sheep getting out. And there is a foot gate on the right hand side there. And once you're through that, it's a very steep descent down to the lake shore. This is good crack. The surfaced road will end at a tarmacadam's parking area by the lake itself. There is a dirt track or a gravel track that continues on into the mountains, and I suspect is used for walkers. I'm not sure what the potential for cycling it is. I think even if you have a gravel bike, it probably turns into a dead end. I don't think you can get back to the other side of the peninsula this way, but sure, give it a try. I'd say you could probably wild camp further up that valley. There is a small flat area by the lake where the parking area is. I think if you had a very small tent, MSO hub sort of setup, you might just about be able to fit in there. The one thing though I noticed though, there was really a howling wind blowing down the lake. Because I was pushed for time, from here I took the N86, the main road, up over the ridge. However, if you go as far as Inch Beach and then turn back up secondary road, you can avoid most of that road. It is quite unpleasantly busy, but I made it and get myself a pint at the other end. And here a minor tragedy strikes in that I forgot to tighten the screw holding my camera to the bike properly after I had stopped at the pub and recharged the battery, and it fell out on the road. So I still had the camera, but I could no longer attach it to the front of the bike. So that's going to reduce the amount of from-bike footage in the next day or two. Here we're near my destination, Banna Strand, and we're looking back at the pass I had crossed over. Banna Strand was the site of an attempted gun landing at the start of the 1916 insurrection. If the guns had been successfully landed, it might have changed the course of the rising. However, they went, and Roger Casement, who was landing them, was caught, tried in London and then executed. Although of an Anglo-Irish background, he had become not only a Republican but a major anti-colonial figure who had exposed the abuses of the British Empire elsewhere in the world previously. So after visiting the Casement Memorial, I went back to the smallest and most southerly of the small car parks that line Banna Strand. There's good space for camping there. I got the tent up, I went up to the dunes and had my traditional glass of wine, and then it was into the tent for the night and on to day 32. That's the 31st day of my Irish coast cycle. Follow the channel to get the rest of the days, and if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up.